Hi everyone, it's Aru from Arubakes, and today we are making one of my favorite cake flavors, coffee cake. But not just a regular coffee cake, this is a coffee and walnut loaf that we're topping with some homemade candied walnuts. It's a perfect slice to eat with a scoop of vanilla ice cream or with your afternoon coffee. Start by toasting the walnuts in a dry pan over a medium flame. Toss this around until it starts to get a little bit of color to it, and then just take it off the heat and set it aside. Into the same pan, add some brown sugar, a knob of butter, and some water, and get that heating until it starts to bubble up. Then add in half of the toasted walnuts into the bubbling caramel. Save half of the walnuts for later to mix into the cake batter. Stir the walnuts in the caramel until everything is coated in that caramel. And then tip this out onto some baking paper and spread it out so that it doesn't all clump up and dry together. Leave these aside to harden up while you make the rest of the cake. Into the bowl of your stand mixer, add in white and brown sugar. This mix of brown and white sugar helps to get that nice deep caramelly flavor and a slight chewy texture to the cake. Then go in with room temperature butter and a pinch of salt and get this mixing on a low speed with a paddle attachment. Let the batter mix for about 3 to 4 minutes until it starts becoming pale and fluffy. While that's beating, crack 3 eggs into a bowl and just break it up with a fork. Start to pour in the eggs a little at a time. Let this incorporate into the batter before pouring in more egg. After you've added about a quarter of the eggs, then just scrape down the bowl. This is important to make sure that there are no lumps of sugar left at the bottom of the bowl. Now start mixing this on a medium speed while adding in more egg, a little at a time. Keep watching the batter to see as the egg gets mixed into the batter, you can add more egg. Once you have added pretty much most of the egg, scrape down the bowl one last time before adding in the last bit of the egg. Once that's mixed through, then immediately stop mixing. Now, if you've been following along for a while, you might have noticed that I always use salted butter at room temperature. This is because room temperature butter just mixes better with the rest of the ingredients to give you that creamy, fluffy batter. Plus, I prefer the depth of flavor that salted butter brings. Now mix together 1 tablespoon of instant coffee with 1 tablespoon of hot water. You want this to be a slightly more thick coffee syrup. Leave this aside to cool while you finish the rest of your batter. So for any cake, the basic ingredient ratio is 1 to 1 of sugar, some kind of fat, so butter, egg, flour, and of course a rising agent. Now that we have beaten together the butter, sugar, and egg, we need to add in the flour. Sift in the flour along with 1 teaspoon of baking powder straight into your mixing bowl. Fold the flour into the batter. Do this gently at first. Use the rubber spatula to almost lift the batter from the bottom and bring it to the top. Keep doing this gently until all the flour is mixed through. Right at the end, just mix it a little vigorously to make sure there aren't any lumps. It's important to be very light-handed when mixing the flour so that you don't knock off too much of the air that you incorporated into the batter when beating it. As you notice that pretty much all of the flour is folding into the batter, then add in the coffee syrup we made earlier. Pour in about half of the coffee syrup and fold this in. We want it to almost ripple through. Then add in the last bit of the coffee along with the rest of the walnuts that we saved earlier. Crush the walnuts into the batter so that you have uneven chunks of walnut in your batter. And then fold this through again so that everything is just rippled through that batter. And that is your coffee cake batter done. Now, before you pour the batter into the baking tin, line the tin with some baking paper to make it easier to take it out of the tin. Apply a little bit of the cake batter around the inside of the tin and then pop the baking paper. It helps the paper stick to the sides of the tin. And then pour in the cake batter. Use a spoon to flatten out the batter evenly and then pop this into a preheated oven to bake. About 15 minutes into the bake, carefully turn the tin around to make sure you get an even bake. After about 30 minutes of baking, just insert a toothpick or a skewer in the middle of the cake. If it doesn't come out clean, then it needs a bit more time to bake. While that's baking, let's make the coffee glaze to put on top of the cake. Simply mix a teaspoon of instant coffee with a tablespoon of hot water to make a very light coffee. Add this to icing sugar a little at a time. Stir it and keep adding more coffee until you get this kind of runny consistency. Once the toothpick comes out clean, your cake is done baking. Take it out of the oven and let it cool down for about 10 minutes in the pan, and then release the sides by sliding a palette knife around the cake. Lift the cake up by the baking paper and then place it on a plate. Pour the coffee glaze on top of the loaf and then spread it around immediately because it will set if not. Once you cover the entire top of the loaf with the coffee glaze, then crush some of the candied walnuts and place it on top of your cake. Do a mix of crushed and whole candied walnuts. Now, I did a small boo boo because I was busy filming. I didn't put the nuts on top of the cake quick enough so for it to stick to the cake before the glaze set. So when you're doing this at home, make sure to work fast. And that's it. Your delicious, soft, caramelly coffee loaf speckled with walnuts is done. Slice into this beauty and enjoy with a scoop of vanilla ice cream or a nice cup of tea or coffee. Subscribe for more. Bye.